So, hey, coming to you on a fine Saturday. It's Saturday when I'm recording this. I don't know exactly when you may be seeing it, but we will kind of hash that out later. All right, so I was threatening online to do a video about the comics. So, talking a little bit about comics, my history of comics, of what I have and enjoy now, and so kind of go into that. I've kind of had a spotty career. There was a point in time when I was in high school that I did contemplate possibly getting into comics, maybe being a comic book artist and whatnot. Drew some little comic books, and I would suffice to say I would have thought to have enrolled in the Joe Kubert School of comic book art or whatever, but yeah, I was a kid who flunked out of drafting class because it turned out no matter how many rulers or straight edges or whatever you gave me, I couldn't draw a straight line to save my ass. Anyway, that pretty much got me out of the running right there. Anyway, so with me, just in case, if you know me from the Deep Images podcast, you know that a lot of the guys are big into comics, and I've kind of followed the same trajectory. I'm of similar age to a lot of those guys, and a lot of us have followed the same stuff. You know, as a young autistic kid, nothing was a jam for me more than just a bunch of special people in outlandish underwear running around beating each other up, and so I grew up with pretty much all the staples, Batman, Superman, all the Marvel guys, eventually Spider-Man, Captain America, the Avengers, yada yada yada, the Fantastic Four. Um, I would watch it periodically. I liked Roy Thomas's stuff a lot in the early '70s. I kind of got a kick out looking at what he was doing. Uh, Steve Gerber, a little more on the irreverent side, a little more on the experimental side. Uh, as I got into my teens, I kind of when I did sporadically pick up comics, and there was a point probably around about junior high, I got into actually following. My entire thing with comics was, okay, these things run kind of like soap operas, and so I'll always see this to be continued thing, but then I would never catch where it got continued, and so I started as a teenager sort of following the comics consecutively, picking up each issue and following the stories. Like a lot of the comics that I really liked in my teens, you know, David Michelinie's run on Iron Man and the Avengers, absolutely brilliant. Of course, Chris Claremont's run with the X-Men was fantastic from the '70s into the '80s. I would say, especially that just dream team with him, John Byrne, and Terry Austin on inks. That was just banging hard all the time, and I really got into that. Afterwards, Dave Cockrum came back, and I liked him. And of course, after that, I think the art kind of started taking a dip downward, or kind of getting spotty, which didn't help much. The thing really killed anything with an X attached after a while was all the different timelines and all the alternate timelines, alternate futures, alternate universes. I fucking hated that shit. And, after that, I just really was not interested in anywhere they were going. I kind of got fairly alienated by all that. Anyway, so into my 80s, into early adulthood, I followed the comics quite a bit. My brother and I both started collecting, and eventually we just had these big boxes, and they were all in nice slip covers and all that. And got some indies. There were some indies in there that were pretty good. What eventually got me out of comics? Well, especially following the whole trendy thing with the superheroes and whatnot. The people in long underwear running around beating each other up. Well, what pretty much drove my head out of that whole space was probably, like a lot of people, Dark Knight, and especially The Watchmen. And you're all going to start drawing your whole thing now. Oh, yeah, the gritty, blah, blah, blah. And I know a lot of people like that. Oh, the gritty is so passe or whatever. I was actually down with the gritty. My whole thing was just when you get a writing that's that heavy and has such layers and meta-narrative and everything else like Alan Moore did in The Watchmen, you can't go back to the rinky-dink shit. And it's just kind of like, unless you're willing to pack that much story and that much commentary and that much of a meta-narrative into your story, I mean, why should I waste my time? Anyway, I had a hard time really taking anything seriously after that. And I was just kind of like, okay, I'm going to kind of take a break from all this and kind of deal with some other shit. Like I said, I just shaved and, my face is all carved up right now. But, I get tired of going around looking like a mountain man. I had to kind of nip that in the bud every now and again, and things get a little dangerous. But then I kind of got back to it. What kind of got me back to it roundabout the mid-aughts was, kind of weirdly enough, some of the animated series, like a lot of the DC properties, particularly anything to do with Justice League, and I liked a lot of the writing in those. And I was on this whole kick at that time where I was obsessed with story. It was just, please, just give me a good story. And DC were doing the best stories at that time, and I started following a lot of what they were doing. Particularly, I became a big fan of JSA. I just had this whole obsession with writing a good story. And I was like that with movies, too. I would haunt, the video rental aisles. You remember those? Just looking at the DVDs and looking and just hoping and praying for something that would give me a good story. Somebody jump out and surprise me. Give me a good story. Like one thing, is that Christian Bale movie, The Machinist. I love that one. I thought that was great. Just tell a story to me in an interesting way that I think is great. Challenge me. Throw me a curveball, please. And the curveballs are just hard to find. And so when you find them, you love them. What got me out of comics, probably by 2009 or somewhere around there, was just looking at both of the big two, Marvel and DC, the superhero funny books and everything. I was just looking at those things and just being like, all right, I'm sick of you guys, because basically what I want you to do is find a story and stick to it. And what you do instead is every year you retcon your whole line and change everything up. Find a story, stick to it. And goddamn it, if you're going to kill a character off, they have to stay dead, even if their name is Bruce Wayne. But, that being neither here nor there, there are and have been some comics that have stuck with me and that I still enjoy. And wanted to show you a few of those. Right here. My man Junji Ito, love him. I got Uzumaki, the whole big giant schlemiel or schmear or whatever. Insert your Yiddish word that I'm getting wrong wherever. This is a beauty. I mean, you're looking here at just the quintessential, like, just the best kind of new, fresh iteration of cosmic horror. Love me some Ito, and going to be getting more. This is fantastic stuff. Great manga. I recommend it for anyone. Going back to some old stuff. Okay, so here's the stuff that really sticks with me. And, you can thank Mondo Heather for having gotten all these for me. She is basically the woman who knows how to get stuff. And a lot of this, I mentioned, I think, Watchmen and Dark Knight. There were a number of other, the imprint, which, Piranha Press, which I believe is a DC imprint. But back during their existence, and you hear precious little mention about them anymore. But I fell in love with Piranha Press, and I still love Piranha Press. A big one for me, Gregory. This is a fantastic comic. Just this absurd, ridiculous comic about this little guy, maybe a child, or maybe just a stunted adult who's confined to this mental institution, and his only real friend is a rat who may or may not be imaginary. But just generally, there's a great spirit in this, and it's just chaotic and anarchic, and just this whole principle of the fact that there's this insane little kid who really can't take care of himself, but he's not an unhappy guy. He's a very happy little character, and just kind of needs the care of this facility, but at the same time, it's just crazy. And it drives other people crazy. And it's fantastic, and it's a lot of fun. Another one, okay, this is one of the big ones. If you're into Piranha Press, like I am, is, of course, one of their big titles is Beautiful Stories for Ugly Children. And this is the first issue, which is the Cotton Candy Autopsy, and by Dave Luper and Dan Sweetman, who did the whole thing, really. They're pretty much the brains behind this series. But just a great story about a group of clowns that go on the lam, burn down the circus and run off with the proceeds, and go on a big bloody road trip. And needless to say, it's kind of a violent story for adults. And this is like most of the issues, they're all kind of standalone stories, and it's basically text. There's shorts. You get a short story with illustrations, and kind of a beautiful thing, I think. And this kind of got, in a way, it's sort of a quasi-noirish narrative. I just love this series. I want to get more. This is they're all standalone stories, and they all just have a vibe. They all just have kind of this messed up vibe to them. I really like them. One of the other ones that's a favorite of mine out of this is a story called I Am Paul's Dog. And it's one about just literally from the point of view of this guy's dog and his thoughts about the neighborhood he lives in, dealing with Paul and his various relationships and all this other stuff. It's a funny read, and just that's the whole thing with beautiful stories. They're absurd, they're dark, they're funny. There are a couple of shorts. There are a couple of ones about hell, and one's about an old lady and her just miserable dog, and they both die. They both go to hell, and they become neighbors with Satan, and she just sits on her porch in hell and has tea with Satan every morning. It's pretty funny stuff. There's another one. It's something like the day they shut the donkey show down. All I remember is this, large kid called like Ricky the Donut Boy or something, sitting on a tire swing, watching everything burn down, and it just typical of just the tone and timbre of this series. I love this series, and mainstream comics. This was another nail in that coffin for me back in the late '80s, early '90s. Another one, a big one that barely gets remembered or mentioned, and I absolutely love it. I found this one by John Hammer. John Hammer, called The Drowned Girl. This is beautiful. You can tell when you look. This art all seems to be just hand painted comics. Just very funny. Again, a very noirish story, and it has to do with this character, this entire first person narrative by this character named Dick Seamus, who's going around the city, just kind of searching, following some kind of a mystery that may only exist in his head. And after a while, you get the feeling, as he's narrating this and he's following this or that thing that he thinks is a clue, he's stumbling into these pretentious art parties and thinking they're Nazi cadres or something like that. And at one time, it lampoons kind of popular, kind of underground culture. At the other time, it's just a great spoof on film noir or noir novels. And coffee. Just good stuff. Very funny, especially when you start realizing you and your narrator may be just going around in circles with no end in sight. And is he a detective, or is he really just an insane bum who thinks he's a detective? And next, this is a wild card. This one's one that from Fantagraphics. It's one that Miss Heather just bought on a whim, and I know nothing about it. I haven't really cracked into it yet, but just kind of cool art. Almost has like a woodcut style to it. So I'm looking forward to cracking into this. Like the style in which it's presented. Looks profoundly creepy. Anyway, so pretty cool. Just in a way, anything I'm interested in now in relation to comics is going to be, just very much off the mainstream path. Kind of tell me a good story. Don't be rational. Don't be logical. Don't be anything that's going to get a big movie contract. I don't know. Anyway, that's pretty much where I'm at today and what I'm enjoying. And I hope y'all enjoy your day. Take it easy.